So let's talk about something huge that happened in January 2026. The United States did something that's, well, never been done before. It formally withdrew from the world's core climate treaty. Yeah, a total first. And this move raises some massive questions. So we're going to break down what happened and, more importantly, why it matters.
All right, here's how we're going to tackle this. We'll start with the historic exit itself. Then, to really get the impact, we've got to understand what the UNFCCC even is. From there, we'll look at the global ripple effects, see what the consequences were back home in the US, and finally, we'll peer down the road to see what might be next for climate action. Okay, let's dive right into the event that kicked this all off. We're talking about a fundamental pivot in America's approach to global climate policy, a policy that had been in place for decades. Now, I want to be really clear here. This wasn't just another policy shift. No, this was completely unprecedented. For the first time ever, a nation formally walked away from the planet's foundational climate treaty, and that nation was the United States.
This quote right here really nails the gravity of the situation. You see, this wasn't just about pulling out of a single agreement. It was about leaving the entire framework, the very thing that supported global climate negotiations for decades.
And to put this into perspective, the UNFCCC goes all the way back to 1992. It's the parent treaty for huge milestones like the 2015 Paris Agreement. So the 2026 withdrawal, that's a dramatic break from more than 30 years of U.S. participation. So to really wrap our heads around the impact of this exit, we have to know what was left behind. What exactly is the UNFCCC anyway? Okay, so at its core, the UNFCCC is the main international treaty for tackling climate change. You can think of it as the constitution for global climate action. It provides the legal groundwork for all these different countries to work together.
And the UNFCCC isn't just some dusty document on a shelf. It's an active body. It's the organization that puts on those big annual climate summits. You know, the COP meetings you always hear about. And most importantly, it's the parent treaty that makes something like the Paris Agreement even possible. And the goal of that Paris Agreement is absolutely crucial. It's all about trying to keep global warming well below 2 degrees Celsius. This is the big target that pretty much the entire world operating under the UNFCCC has been aiming for. So, what happens on the world stage? What are the global consequences when a country with the size and influence of the United States just gets up and leaves the table? This single number tells you so much of the story. The U.S. isn't just any country. It's the second largest historical emitter. So its participation, or lack of participation, has this massive outsized impact on the entire global carbon budget. The withdrawal creates some immediate problems. The U.S. is suddenly gone from the negotiating table. It yanks its financial support for funds that help developing nations adapt. And maybe most importantly, its absence makes it way harder to build consensus, and it might even give other big emitters an excuse to slap off on their own commitments. And naturally, a move like this creates a huge power vacuum in global politics. With the U.S. stepping back, you can bet that other major players like China and the European Union are looking to step up and take the lead in the global climate conversation. Okay, so that's the global picture. But what did this decision actually mean for policy and for action back home, inside the United States? It's really fascinating because you see this major split. At the federal level, the withdrawal sent a clear signal, a policy direction favoring fossil fuels. But at the same time, this powerful counter-movement bubbled up. You had tons of states, cities, and major companies basically saying, you know what, we're still in. They decided to keep pushing for climate action totally independent of Washington. And this isn't just a political issue. There are some big legal questions here. Can a president just unilaterally pull the country out of a treaty that the Senate originally approved? And on the flip side, what would it take to get back in? Legal experts are all over the map on this, which creates this cloud of uncertainty over the future. So, where does all of this leave us? What does the future of global climate cooperation even look like after such a historic exit? You know, it's important to keep things in perspective. While the U.S. withdrawal is a massive deal, the UNFCCC framework itself is still overwhelmingly intact. We're talking 195 other nations that are still part of the treaty, still doing the collaborative work on climate change. And that's a really key takeaway here. The U.S. exit is a huge political statement, for sure, but it hasn't stopped the broader global trend. The momentum toward clean energy is still there, and it's being pushed forward not just by other governments, but by powerful economic forces and new technology.
And that leaves us with a million-dollar question for the future, doesn't it? The whole architecture of global climate action was built for everybody to participate. So, with one of its most important architects now on the outside looking in, the question isn't just whether the structure will stand, but how it's going to have to